Now that the default brows are populated, it's time to make yours and your client's preference tweaks. In the beginning, it's normal to take longer as you get used to the features and controls. But with some practice, our artists can get their preferred shape in just 1 minute. We're going to outline best practices for steps to take with each of your clients and when you practice on yourself. First, just a note that the center mouse wheel when double-clicked will exit the scan. Avoid clicking that button entirely unless you intend to exit the scan. You may have noticed now that when the client moves, the brows move with them. This is possible through AI tracking of the face and tiara. This means that if your client talks, make micro movements, the brows will move with her. If you're practicing on yourself, you can test this by moving your head around and watch the brows track with you. If you move the tiara, you'll notice the position of the brows change. On the majority of clients, the tiara will stay in place. In the rare case it does slip, you'll see the brows lower in position. It's likely due to residual oil or makeup on the forehead. If you notice the tiara slipping, wipe the forehead clean with alcohol before proceeding. Okay, now let's go over how to edit the brows. On the brows, you'll see 2 different color points. There are 5 yellow points, located at the top and bottom of the head, top and bottom of the arch, and at the tail. If you move these points, it moves the position of the brow outline. By default, when you move a point on one side, the other brow moves symmetrically. Later, we'll show you how to go into asymmetry mode, where you can move just one side and the other brow won't change. A note on the top arch point. The placement of this point is different from how we normally map. Normally, we mark the arch at the highest point of the brow. With the Fleek Light, when the arch point is closer to the head of the brow, it creates a rounder shape. When you move it out to the natural high point of the arch, you create a more structured or square arch. Even if the arch is placed more narrow for the rounder shape, the actual highest point of the map will be somewhere on the white outline closer to the actual high point of the natural brows. Next, take a look at the blue points. These control the curvature of the shape. You can create more straight lines or more curved lines. These are blue points at the top and bottom of the heads and on either side of the yellow arch points on the top and bottom. Next, let's take notice of the horizontal and diagonal lines coming out of the outer corner of the eyes. These are here to help you align the brows parallel to the client's eye level or the square of the face. Now take a look at the vertical lines coming down from the bottom of the brow heads. These are to align the brows in the center of the face by using the client's tear ducts as a reference point. In many cases, if we align the vertical lines so that there's even spacing on either side in relation to the tear ducts, then the brows are in the center of the face. There are also cases where the client's eyes are offset to the left or right. So in this case, you can use the bridge of the nose as a reference point to ensure the brows are aligned in the center. Now that we've gone over the different points on the map, let's take a look at the menu. The menu is hidden by default. To bring it up, simply click on the right mouse button. You can click anywhere to bring up the menu, for example, just under the eye. Be careful not to place the menu too high or over the tiara codes, as this can cause twitching of the brows. If you notice this happening, right-click the mouse again to make the menu disappear, and move your cursor to a spot further from the tiara codes and click again. Let's walk through the menu options and start designing. This is the Move feature. When selected, you are able to move the full map around. Move your mouse cursor to the top of this feature and left-click to select it. You'll know it's selected if a white box appears around it. Now that it's selected, move your mouse cursor anywhere on the brows. Left-click and hold and start dragging your map around to try out this feature. We use this to move the position of the brow map when needed. Now let's undo that change. On the side of the mouse, there are 2 buttons, up and down. If you click on the down button, that will undo what you just did. If you click on the up button, that will redo the action. Let's click down once to undo the map move we just made. For more precise movements, you can move the map 1 mm at a time. Place your mouse cursor anywhere on the map and with your thumb, press and hold the down button. Then scroll the mouse wheel forward and backward. This moves the map up and down millimeter by millimeter, giving you precise control. We can also move the map left and right in the same way. Press and hold the up button and scroll the mouse wheel and you'll see the map move left and right 1 mm at a time. Take a moment and align the map so the head of the brows are in the correct position using this move feature. We'll show you how to change the arches and tails after aligning. Now on the menu, click the Move feature again to deselect it. You'll know the feature is off when the white box around it disappears. The next feature is the Tilt feature. It allows you to tilt the map from side to side, rotating around the center of the space between your brows. Left-click to select it. Now move your mouse cursor anywhere on the map. Left-click and hold, and drag your mouse from left to right, and you'll see the entire map tilt from left to right. We use this to ensure the brows are parallel to the eye level or square of the face. Adjust using these horizontal lines as a reference line. If you notice that these lines aren't level to the eyes, you can tilt the brows until they are even. Another way to use the tilt is to press and hold the down button and scroll the mouse wheel. You'll see the brows tilt 1 mm at a time. Now that we've completed the alignment, let's move the tail point in place. To do this, move your cursor to the yellow point at the tail. When you hover over it, the yellow point will get larger. Left-click and hold and drag the tail point into its desired place. Now let's adjust the arches. Move your cursor over to the yellow point on the top of the brow near the natural arch, and when it gets larger, left-click and hold, then drag the yellow point to where you want the arch to be. First, we're going to show you a rounder arch, so don't move it out too wide to the natural arch peak. We'll do that in a bit. There's also another precise way to move the arch point. Hover over the yellow arch point so the points enlarge. Click and hold the down button, then scroll the mouse wheel. You'll see this moves the arch point up and down in 1 mm intervals, much like the previous move and tilt feature. You can also move it left to right in the same way. Click and hold the up button and simultaneously scroll the mouse wheel. You'll see the arch moving bit by bit for precise control. At this point, you'll see one of two things. If the natural brows are more symmetrical, the arch points will be lined up nicely. For asymmetrical brows, one arch point may be either too high or too low. We're going to fix this later on after we get the rest of the brows in the right position. Now that the top arch point is lined up, let's adjust the curve of the brow from the arch to the tail. We'll create a rounder brow first and a more square structured arch after. To change the curvature from the arch to the tail, locate the blue points on the temple side of the yellow points. Hover over it so the blue points enlarge. Left-click and hold, then start dragging the blue point up and watch the arch shape lift. Be careful not to move it up too high because you'll notice that it creates a sharp indent on the top of the brow shape. Next, move the blue points outward towards the hairline and you'll see the shape stretch outward. Now move it inward towards the yellow arch point and you'll see the shape get more straight. We'll revisit this later to make more of a square arch. Play with this blue point and get the arch to tail shape in a good position that blends with the natural hair. Now we should have a near perfect shape, but let's show you how to create a more square arch. Move your mouse cursor to the top yellow arch point and move it outwards to align with the natural highest point of your arch. You will see the arch to tail shape stretch outward, and that's normal. We're about to adjust that. To complete the more square arch shape, move your mouse cursor to the same blue point attached to the top yellow arch point. Move that point inward towards the yellow arch point and this will flatten the tail shape and create a more square yet still soft arch shape. Perfect. Now either let's move forward with that shape, or if you prefer the rounder shape, undo the square arch steps until you're back at the rounder shape. You can undo by clicking the down button at your thumb. Next, let's look at the brow heads. If they're in the correct position, you can skip this step. But if you need to move the heads closer or further to the nose, move your mouse cursor to hover over the yellow point at the top of the head. Note that there's a blue point very close or slightly on top of the yellow point. But if you hover more over the yellow point, which is closer to the center of the face, then you should see the yellow point get larger. If you have trouble with this and only the blue point gets larger, move the blue point out of the way slightly. We'll move it back after. Left click and hold the yellow point at the top of the head and drag it to the position you want it to be in. Alternatively, for more control, you can also click and hold the up button and scroll to move it towards and further away from the center of the face. And you can move the heads up and down precisely if you click and hold the down button while scrolling the mouse wheel. Align the heads where you'd like them. If you move the blue points out of the way, click and drag it back into its original position very close to the yellow point. Let's show you another great feature. By default, the brow heads are square, but not all artists or clients like it square. Sometimes we prefer a slight angle. We can change this with the head angle feature. Select this feature, then scroll the mouse wheel forward and backward and watch the angle of the brow head shift. Design the angle of your heads the way you want them, or undo to the square shape by clicking the down button. Next, let's change the thickness of the brows with the thickness feature. Move your cursor over to it and left click to select it. Now on the mouse, scroll the wheel forward and backward and you'll see the thickness change 1 mm at a time for ultimate precision. Adjust the brows to your preferred thickness. Turn the thickness feature off by clicking it again. You'll know it's turned off when the white box around it disappears. Now let's say you have a client that wants a tapered brow, where the arch section is slightly thinner than the head section. By default, when you move one yellow point, such as the top arch, the bottom yellow point moves with it. We can uncouple these points with the independent feature. Click that and move your cursor to the bottom of the arch and locate the yellow point. If a blue point is covering it, move it out of the way slightly. Hover over the yellow point so it enlarges. Click and hold the left button and drag your mouse up a little to make the arch thinner. For more control, as always, we can move it 1 mm at a time. Now hover over the bottom arch yellow point again. Press and hold the down button and scroll the mouse wheel up notch by notch. We suggest not making this section too thin for the best aesthetic, and only lifting the bottom arch up by 1 or 2 mm in most cases. If you move a blue dot out of the way, left click and hold to move it back in place. Next, let's address brows that are naturally not symmetrical. This is the Asymmetry feature. Left click to select it. Now when we make a change to one brow, the other brow won't be affected. We typically recommend leaving asymmetry changes to last so you get a caliper symmetrical shape first and can show your client that their brows aren't symmetrical, leading to less friction when we have to educate them on why symmetry is not the best option for the client. We also leave it to later in the designing process so we get an ideal shape on both brows and only change what's needed on one of them so the brows are as close to the same shape and position as possible while making necessary asymmetrical adjustments. With asymmetry mode on, take a look at the overall position of the brows. Are they in a position that will blend best with their natural hairs? Does the entire brow need to be raised or lowered? Or is it just one arch that needs to change? Or just one tail point? We'll explore all options. To move one entire brow up or down without changing the shape, on the menu select the Move feature, so now both the Asymmetry and Move feature are selected. Move your cursor to hover over anywhere on the brow you want to move. You can move it up or down by left-click and holding, then dragging your mouse up and down. Let's undo that move by clicking the down button under your thumb. Remember, for precise control, we can press and hold the down button on the mouse and scroll the mouse wheel up and down to raise or lower that one brow 1 millimeter at a time. Now, if it's just one arch that's not in the right spot, you can move one arch up and down by hovering over the top yellow arch point and either left-click and hold, then drag freely, or for precision, using the down or up buttons and scrolling the mouse. Next, look at the tails of the brow. Are they in a position that blends best with their natural hair? If the client insists on a tail position very outside their natural hair, use your judgment on if the desired position is going to give them attractive long-term results. If it will look unnatural as the brow fade, inquire about the maintenance the client was willing to commit to and educate them on the options. While in asymmetry mode, if you need to move the brow tails asymmetrically, left-click and hold, then drag it into position. Even though the brows may now be asymmetrical, for clients with naturally uneven brows, you should be creating a shape that's in the client's best interest for the best long-term results and gently educating them on why the brows need to be asymmetrical and why this is the best option long-term. Perfect, we should now be done designing the brows. But let's show you a few other great features. Sometimes, showing all the points confuses the client. You can hide everything except the brow outline with the Hide Points feature. When selected, only the outline remains so the client can see their shape more clearly. Next, we're going to show you a way to show your clients 10 different variations of this shape in seconds. With the points hidden, on the menu, look for the Shapes feature. Left-click to select it. Scroll the mouse one notch at a time and watch the arches. You'll see subtle changes. Scroll through the 10 options with the client. Note, for straighter brows, the changes will be more subtle. For more arched brows, the changes will be more dramatic. Not all shapes will suit every client, but this is a great way to explore additional options, empowering you and your client to make the most informed decisions on the final shape. A note we'd like to mention now is if a certain menu feature is on, it's not possible to grab and move any individual point. If you're trying to move a point but the point is not enlarging when you hover over it, there's likely a menu feature turned on. If you see a white box around a menu feature, left-click on it to turn it off. The last thing to show you is how to control the straightness or curvedness of the brow shape from the heads to the arches. In some cases, we may not want these to be perfectly straight, and we may want them to be either rounded up or dipping down slightly. Let's play with this shaping. Hover over the blue point on top of the brow inside of the arch. Once the blue point is enlarged, left-click and hold, then drag it up and down. You'll see that moving it up lifts the shape from straight to rounding up. Moving it down creates a dip and an S-curve shape. Be careful not to go too far. Subtle changes are enough. If you go too far, you may see an angled point occur on the top and bottom of the arches. Avoid creating this shape by making slight adjustments. Excellent! We've now designed the brows. Again, don't worry if it took you a longer time today to get used to everything. You're learning something new, and with more practice, you can get the reshaping done in just 1 minute. Let's recap the menu and go over additional features and mouse controls. Starting from the top, we have the Move feature. Use this to move the whole brow map. You can either drag and drop or use precision scroll. Tilt allows you to tilt the brow map from side to side, rotating around the middle of the two brows. Thickness allows you to quickly scroll through different thicknesses. With shapes, you can quickly scroll through many different shapes that suit your client. Head angle allows you to scroll and change the brow head angle. With asymmetry, you can make edits to one brow only. Independent mode decouples the top and bottom point pairs, so you can change them separately. Hide allows you to see the brow lines more clearly by hiding everything else. Dots feature turn the solid brow outline into dotted lines. This can help you evenly space out your stroke intervals for microblading and nanostrokes. Reset allows you to reset back to the original AI default brow. Mirror helps you horizontally flip everything so you can easily practice on yourself in the mirror. And finally, you can use the rescan feature if your first scan didn't come out well and you'd like to rescan the client. As for our mouse controls, left button is used to select features on the menu and yellow and blue control points on the brow. The right button is used to show and unshow the menu when you're on the mapping screen. The down button is for undo. The up button is for redo. Double-clicking the center wheel is like a back button. It will always take you to the previous page. Be careful not to do this by accident when designing the brows, as it will exit and bring you back to the home page. When Move is selected, holding the down button and scrolling moves the map up and down. Holding the up button and scrolling moves the map left and right. In tilt mode, holding the down button and scrolling will tilt the brows from side to side. When hovering over any yellow or blue point, holding the down button and scrolling will move the points up and down. And holding the up button and scrolling moves the points from left to right. You've now completed your design training. Now it's time to see how we can trace the design shape onto your client's skin.